Welcome back to RetroWheelsVault, where horsepower never dies. I'm RetroVault 4, your tour guide through chrome, carburetors, and pure nostalgia. Today we're dusting off the 1966 Plymouth Valiant Signet, a compact with a punch. Because modern cars forgot what muscle means, but this little Valiant still flexes like a scrappy underdog boxer. Here's a fun little nugget about the 66 Signet, something that might make you smile if you're into the quirks of old school driving. On models equipped with slant 6 engines, the carburetors came with a manual choke system. Now, by the mid-60s, most cars were moving on to automatic chokes, which meant the car handled cold starts for you. But not the Valiant. It gave you the keys to the kingdom, or at least the keys to the air-fuel mix. Using a manual choke was kind of like cooking breakfast on a gas stove versus a microwave. Sure, the microwave is easier, but the stove gives you control, finesse, and maybe even a little pride in doing it the quote-unquote right way. With the manual choke, the driver had to feather the knob just right to coax the slant 6 awake on a frosty morning. Too much and you'd flood it, too little and your engine would stumble like a grumpy teenager getting out of bed. Today the feature feels wonderfully nostalgic, like turning a crank-start radio instead of hitting Bluetooth. It's one of those little quirks that makes the Valiant Signet not just a car, but a hands-on experience in classic motoring. The 66 Signet may have been labeled a compact, but don't let that fool you. It came dressed sharp enough to crash the big boys' muscle car party. Chrysler gave it a bit of a makeover this year, tweaking just enough to keep things fresh without reinventing the wheel. Changes for the 66 model year included new front fenders, fresh rear fenders on sedans, a beefier rear bumper that looked like it was ready to moonlight as a battering ram, and subtle modifications to the roofline that gave it a sleeker silhouette. Up front, the Valiant wore a large split grille with built-in round headlights, giving the car a wide-eyed, determined look, almost like it was saying, I might be smaller, but I'm ready to throw down. The Signet trim dressed things up further with chrome accents and clean body lines, proving you didn't have to be a land yacht to look stylish. Think of it as the well-tailored suit in a room full of oversized tuxedos. The design struck a balance between practical and polished, lean, confident, and unmistakably Plymouth. It wasn't shouting for attention, but it made sure you knew it belonged in the conversation. When it came to engine choices, the 66 Valiant Signet was like a dinner menu. You could order light, hearty, or downright spicy depending on your appetite. Starting with the base dish, you had the 170 cubic inch 2.8 liter slant 6, serving up a modest 101 horsepower at 4,400 RPM with a 3.4 inch bore, 3.1 inch stroke, and a Carter one-barrel carburetor. It wasn't exactly a fire breather, but it was dependable, like black coffee. Simple, strong, and it got you where you needed to go. Step it up to the 225 cubic inch 3.6 liter slant 6, and suddenly things tasted a lot richer. With 145 horsepower and 215 foot-pounds of torque at 2,800 RPM, it had enough low-end grunt to make stoplight getaways feel less like a polite shuffle and more like a confident stride. Same rugged cast iron block, same one-barrel carb, but stretched out with a longer stroke for extra punch. Then came the main course, the 273 cubic inch 4.5 liter LA V8. At 180 horsepower with a 2-barrel carb, it gave the Valiant a proper growl. But the real treat was the Commando 273, packing anywhere from 235 to 275 ponies with a 4-barrel carb and higher compression. Suddenly, the compact Valiant wasn't just scrappy, it was throwing haymakers in the muscle car ring. The drivetrain transmission options for the 66 Plymouth Valiant Signet gave buyers plenty of ways to roll their own gears in 66, or let the car do the heavy lifting. Starting with the Chrysler A903 3-speed manual, this setup was the no-frills workhorse. Think of it like black and white television. Simple, reliable, and it got the job done. Sure, you weren't breaking any records with it, but it taught plenty of drivers the fine art of clutch finesse. For those who wanted a bit more spice, there was the Chrysler A8 33 4-speed manual. Now this was where the Valiant really came alive. Crisp, direct shifts made you feel like you were part of the machine, like a conductor leading an orchestra of pistons and valves. Slide that shifter through the gates, and suddenly the compact car carried itself with the confidence of a heavyweight. But maybe you weren't in the mood for all that legwork. Enter the A904 TorqueFlite 3-speed automatic. Smooth, dependable, and ready to cruise, this gearbox was like hiring a chauffeur who didn't complain. It wasn't flashy, but its reputation for durability made it a favorite. Whether you wanted hands-on engagement or laid-back comfort, the Valiant had you covered. The 66 Valiant Signet was built on Chrysler's trusty A-body platform, the same sturdy foundation that underpins some of Mopar's most reliable compacts. Think of it as the skeleton key of Plymouth engineering, lightweight enough to keep things nimble, yet tough enough to handle the occasional abuse from an overly enthusiastic right foot. Up front, the Valiant rolled with independent front suspension, which meant each wheel did its own thing when hitting bumps or potholes. It wasn't sports car sharp, but compared to some of the more boat-sized sedans of the era, the Valiant felt downright spry. Picture it like a cat landing on its feet, balanced, composed, and a little smug about it. Out back, things got more old school with a live-rear axle supported by semi-elliptical leaf springs. The setup was as basic as a hammer, but just as dependable. Sure, it didn't offer the plush refinement of newer cold spring designs, but it was rugged, affordable, and perfectly matched to the Valiant's mission. Keep moving, keep working, and keep smiling. The combination gave the Signet a personality that was part commuter, part scrapper. It wasn't flashy, but it stayed planted, reliable, and ready to take on whatever the road, or your right foot, threw at it. Step inside the 66 Signet and you might forget you were in a compact car at all. This wasn't just about getting from A to B, it was about doing it in style, or at least with enough comfort to make your neighbor's bare-bones sedan feel like a lawn chair. The all-vinyl bench seats came standard, but if you wanted to feel a little sportier, you could upgrade to bucket seats with the center console, the kind of setup that made even a grocery run feel like a grand tour. The upholstery wasn't just vinyl either. In some models, Plymouth got fancy with an ostrich grain pattern that looked like it belonged in a boutique, not a budget-friendly compact. The Signet trim itself cranked up the class with plush carpeting, tailored finishes, and special badging, so everyone knew you weren't driving just any Valiant. You were piloting the deluxe edition. A padded dash was standard, keeping things both safer and softer, while armrests front and rear gave passengers a break from elbows on vinyl. For convenience, you had the essentials: heater defroster, sun visors, cigar lighter, and even backup lights. And if you checked the right boxes, you could get factory air conditioning and a trans audio AM radio, because even in 1966, driving without tunes was unacceptable. Underneath this 66 compact car, the real magic happened where rubber met road. For most drivers, the standard rear end did its job just fine. Basic, predictable, and reliable. But for those who like to keep both wheels pulling their weight, Plymouth offered the Sure Grip limited slip differential. This wasn't just a fancy name. It gave the Valiant better traction when the pavement got slick or when you couldn't resist a little spirited driving. Think of it as teamwork for your rear wheels. No more one-tire fires, just balanced power delivery that made the compact Valiant feel a bit more heroic. On paper, the 66 Plymouth Valiant Signet was a compact, but its dimensions tell a story of smart proportions rather than outright brawn. At 188.3 inches long, it wasn't exactly tiny, more like the Goldilocks of cars, not too big, not too small, just right for threading through traffic or sliding into that downtown parking spot without breaking a sweat. With the 69-inch width, it had enough shoulder room to keep passengers from bumping elbows, yet it still slipped through tight spaces like a kid sneaking extra cookies before dinner. Its 55-inch height gave it a low, road-hugging stance, adding to its sleek profile without making you feel like you were sitting on the floor. The 106-inch wheelbase struck a sweet balance between stability and agility, long enough for highway comfort, short enough to keep city driving lively. And let's not forget weight. Tipping the scales at 2,774 pounds, the Valiant was light on its feet. That relatively lean curb weight made it more efficient and gave even the smaller engines a fighting chance to feel sprightly. In short, the Valiant's dimensions were like a well-fitted suit, tailored enough to look sharp, roomy enough to move comfortably, and always ready for the occasion. The 66 Plymouth Signet was a car that knew its role and played it well. Its biggest strength was reliability. Thanks to its rugged slant 6 engines and simple, proven engineering, this car could take a beating and still keep humming along like your favorite coffee percolator. Add in the lightweight build and compact dimensions, and you had a machine that was easy to drive, easy to park, and easy on the wallet. The available Commando's 273 V8 gave it the muscle car flavor with a full-size bulk, making the Signet something of a sleeper in the compact market. And let's not forget its interior. Plush for its class, with touches of luxury that made even the morning commute feel less like a chore. But of course, no car is perfect. The weaknesses of the Valiant Signet showed up when you pushed it too far. Base models with the smaller engines could feel underpowered, like trying to sprint in flip-flops. The suspension, while durable, wasn't built for precision cornering, so don't expect sports car handling when carving through curves. And while the styling was tasteful, it wasn't exactly jaw-dropping, more nicely dressed neighbor than runway model. Still, its strengths far outweigh its flaws, making it a lovable underdog of the 60s. The 1966 Plymouth Valiant Signet may not have been the loudest kid on the muscle car block, but it knew how to hold its own. With its sharp design updates, a range of engines from thrifty to feisty, and an interior that punched well above its weight, the Signet proved that compacts didn't have to be boring. It was like that underdog boxer, maybe not the heavyweight champion, but scrappy enough to earn your respect and stylish enough to make you take a second look. Rugged, reliable, and with a touch of class, the Valiant Signet embodied the sweet spot between practicality and personality. And now it's your turn. What do you think? Was the Valiant Signet an underrated gem of the 60s, or just a nice daily driver in the muscle car world? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed this trip back in time, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more automotive deep dives, and share this video with fellow gearheads who love a little nostalgia with their horsepower. And until next time, this is RetroWheelsVault 4 reminding you, keep it loud, keep it classic.